Time to re-up YouTube. Your boy Mustard is back with another video, and I have to say, what a last couple of months it has been for the Boston Celtics. You finally make the finals for the first time since 2010 after a turnaround season where they started off horribly, even being hit with a game winner by RJ Barrett of all people. Then their young star player Jayson Tatum chokes in the finals and hands Steph Curry his fourth championship and first finals MVP. Then it's announced that Robert Williams has to have surgery, which is not surprising because this is Robert Williams we're talking about here. On top of that, their pickup Danilo Gallinari is also ruled out with a knee injury. Then the worst thing that could possibly happen happens as Ime Udoka, their rookie head coach that led them to the finals in his first season, is now suspended for a year due to personal misconduct in which he had a consensual sexual relationship with the female member of the Celtics staff. Talk about a rough couple of months. My goodness. I gotta say, if you're a Celtics fan, you must be dying for a redemption arc in this story, because my goodness, y'all need it desperately. And I guess that's the question that should be on everybody's mind. Can the Celtics redeem their 2022 to 2023 NBA season, or is it doomed to fail? Because obviously they have the talent when you look all across this roster. This is a team that thrived last season not because of their offensive firepower, but because of their defensive ability. They have multiple guards that can defend the perimeter, good help side defenders, a nice little twin towers of Rob Will and Al Horford, good strong wings that are flexible to defend multiple positions, and a defensive minded Ime Udoka who can cook up some of the best defensive schemes in the league. The Celtics finished first in opponents' points per game and second in defensive rating, while offensively finishing 12th in points per game and 7th in offensive rating. The offense was good, but the defense was special. We're talking all-time defense here. And I believe that this season, despite the loss of Ime Udoka, on talent alone, they will still be one of the best 5 to 10 defenses in the NBA. And I believe offensively, they're going to take a step forward, especially now with the addition of Malcolm Brogdon. Brogdon has been one of the more overlooked point guards in the league. He's a very capable passer and decision maker and a solid scorer. Throughout his stint in Indiana, I think they expected him to be something that he's not, which is a go-to scorer aside from Domantas Sabonis as the number 2 option. And I never thought that was going to work out, because as good as Brogdon is, he is not a number 2 option on a team, because not only does he not have the skill set, primarily the on-ball creation, but his health won't even allow that. Since Brogdon has left Milwaukee, he has yet to play 60 games in a season, and just this past year he couldn't even play 40. Brogdon is good, but I genuinely do believe with a lesser role coming off of the bench more than likely for this team, he'll have less of an offensive responsibility and a responsibility as a whole to the team, which will free him up to be more healthy for this roster this season, which is best for all parties involved. We'll probably see a jump in his efficiency from behind the arc that's pretty reminiscent of the Milwaukee Bucks days, where he was shockingly a 50-40-90 player. Now, despite the loss of Gallinari, I still do like some of the pieces that they have coming off of the bench because of the flexibility they can bring on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Peyton Pritchard is a nice offensive spark plug, can space the floor, and defensively, he's not a liability to me. I think he shows a lot of effort out there. He's not like some clear negative, but he is going to be a target primarily due to his size and frame, which is why you have a guy like Derek White coming off of the bench who's one of the best defenders in the NBA. Great lateral quickness, can move his feet very well on the perimeter, is very strong, can fight over screens, can rack up steals with really quick hands, and offensively, even though he has struggled a lot, especially in the playoffs last year, I just knew in game 1 of that finals when he was going crazy with some of the shots he was making that it was the fakest game ever, because he was playing like dog water when it came to shooting the ball in the postseason last year. But despite that, he still is a really good and underrated passer with a high basketball IQ that can be used in some spots offensively in the half court or in transition. And I think as a shooter, he has to get better from here. And if not, he still presents value defensively and as a decision maker. And on a team like this that needs all the playmaking they can get because they don't have an elite playmaker on the team, then I'd say they could use all the help they can get. And while we're on the subject of defensive players with suspect offensive value, that brings me to Grant Williams. Grant Williams, man, you talk about unlikely heroes, that's what he was last year in the playoffs, primarily in game 7 against the Milwaukee Bucks, where they left him open for the first half and then he he just destroyed them in the second half, especially in that third quarter. I mean, 3 after 3 after 3, it was raining for that man. For the Celtics' sake, it's kind of like a breakthrough moment for him to be a real three-point shooter. He kind of reminds me of a younger PJ Tucker. If his volume from behind the arc can increase, I definitely do believe that's something to take note of, because if he can become a more consistent three-point shooter that's respected by opposing defenses, that'll make him way more flexible on this team on offense. And defensively, he presents so much flexibility. He can defend the perimeter and move his feet very well, and because of his frame and size, he's not going to be easily bullied on the block in the post. Like I said, I definitely get those PJ Tucker vibes. The guy is always hustling, and offensively, he's going to make some clutch key shots. But then that brings us finally to the top 5, the upper echelon of this roster, the starting lineup. For starters, let's just talk about Robert Williams and his injury. Rob Williams is a very good player, one of the best rim protectors and centers in general in the league. He's an underrated passer. Combine that with his great ability to roll to the basket and set screens. He's a good player in the short roll situations. He's active on the boards, primarily on the offensive glass. He's always hustling there. Obviously a great lob threat, but we all know his biggest contributions for this team comes on the defensive side of the ball. Rob is great at weak side shot blocking. He can come from out of nowhere and just get these hyper athletic blocks that look amazing. And in the post, even though I wouldn't go as far as to say he's like a Rudy Gobert type of player, he's still a very great post defender. Unfortunately though, I would say the biggest issue with Rob Williams is his inability to stay on the court. If you look throughout his career, Robert Williams has struggled with injuries for a good chunk of it. Last year he only played 61 games, the year before he only played 52, and going into the playoffs this past postseason, he probably rushed back from an injury that was a torn meniscus, and throughout the entire playoffs it was very clear that he was continuously re-aggravating the injury, and now he has to have surgery, which is not surprising. I really like Rob Will and his effectiveness on this team. He could be impactful on any roster in the league, but unfortunately though, the best ability is availability, and thankfully for the Celtics, they have another guy in the front court that they can lean on at times, and that's Al Horford. The great Al Horford, man, 36 years old and still giving him the business. I gotta say, I love to see my man Big Al play. It seems like no matter how old he gets, he can squeeze productivity out of his career. Horford is a very useful player on both ends of the court for this Boston Celtics team. Offensively, he's a very good passer and has been a good passer throughout his entire career, being able to be used in the high post, the low post. He can find guys in transition. He's a good short roll passer, even though he's not much of a screen setter anyways, but in those situations he's very good at making the right reads to help players off the ball. He's grown as a shooter over the course of his career, and even though you're probably better off leaving him to shoot those jumpers, he's not a great three-point shooter, he's still very capable of catching on fire from behind the arc. Remember that game 1 in the fourth quarter against the Warriors this past year? That was insane. Hell, just look at the damage he was doing against the Bucks from behind the arc in that game. The man literally rose up and dunked on Giannis. This guy is 36 years old dunking on Giannis, a former D-boy from 2 years ago. That's crazy. And don't think he's not contributing defensively, because he's still one of the best defenders at his position. He moves his feet very well on the perimeter. Hell, if you go back to those finals, even though Steph was cooking him, don't get me wrong, I thought Horford did a very good job. Steph was just making some tough shots on him. Horford's also very good at defending the post. He's well disciplined. He's not gonna foul or reach in. He's good at getting in passing lanes with a high IQ. I mean, he really is the perfect power forward in this league. The only problem is his age. I don't know when he's gonna hit that wall and start declining super fast, or if that's ever going to happen, but I do believe if he can just be 90% of what he was last year, which isn't too big of an ask, he's been maintaining ever since 2018, then I definitely think the Rob Will injury problems will not be too big of an issue with Al Horford substituting. The only real negative with Al Horford is he's not a great rebounder. Horford hasn't averaged double-digit rebounds since the 2013 season, and outside of that year, he's never done it in his career. He's not a presence on the offensive glass or defensive glass, and that's kind of a problem, don't get me wrong, especially on a team like this that when you remove Rob Will, their size problems become an even bigger deal. Unless they're thinking about giving Luke Cornett some minutes, I really don't know what they're gonna do as far as their size is concerned. But enough of the big guys, let's talk about the wings and guards, and let's start off with the defensive player of the year that's currently reigning right now, Marcus Smart. As good as people know Marcus Smart is, I actually believe he's underrated. Smart has actually taken strides as an offensive player, and it's been nice to see the growth in his game. He's a good passer, capable of running the pick and roll and facilitating in the half court or obviously in transition, either or, take your pick. And though he isn't the perfect playmaker due to the lack of his scoring gravity from the defense, he's still very good at threading the needle at times with good passes and doing what he can as a primary ball handler to make the defense pay for their mistakes. And hey, Marcus Smart does have those games where he does not miss, and whenever that's happening, look out. But we all know that this guy is not known for his offense. Hell, some people are going to tell you he's a trash offensive player, and I wouldn't even be mad. If you look at some of them efficiency numbers, it's pretty nasty. I mean, when we're talking about the fakest shooters in the league, Marcus Smart might be number one. But we all know his defense. That's what he's known for. We're talking about a guy that's capable at switching on the perimeter, fighting over screens very well, and even in the post, he's actually very underrated. He's great at getting steals. He can read passing lanes as if it's the back of his right hand. And hey, when it comes to flopping and getting those calls, nobody does it better than that man Marcus Smart. Hate it or not, it's valid work. When you're talking about impact on this team, you could argue that Marcus Smart is the second most impactful player. He has offensive responsibilities to play make and handle the ball for the team, and defensively he's going out there defending the best perimeter player on a night-to-night basis. He has value not only on the perimeter but even on the interior at times when they try to get the mismatch on him, and considering the fact that he holds his own at all of those things every single night for the most part, I would say he has a clear case for being not only the second best player but easily the second most impactful player on this roster on a night-to-night basis. But I can say all I want about Marcus Smart. We all know the faces of this franchise are their star duo in Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Let's talk about the latter before I get to the former. Let's talk about Jaylen Brown. JB is a very underrated and overrated player in my personal opinion. When you look at his ability to impact both sides of the ball, there's not many players in this league that can do what he does. He's a good shot creator, even though he needs some work as a ball handler in his dribbling, let's be honest here. He's still capable of creating his own shot on the ball, and when he gets hot, my goodness, he burns up. We're talking about a guy that on any given night can just drop 40 out of nowhere. It's that amazing. He can play off the ball as well, coming off a screen, spotting up, catch and shoot situations, you name it. He's great at getting pressure at the rim. He's a very effective finisher, great at using his size, contorting his body, and he can put a dunk poster on anybody in this league. And on the defensive end, he's one of the best one-on-one defenders in the NBA, especially at his position. But as I said earlier, he's both underrated and overrated. And let me explain. There are some people out there that still try to make a stupid argument that he's better than Jayson Tatum, and I'll never understand the logic that they use behind it. They'll point out these specific examples of Jaylen Brown outplaying Jayson Tatum, and then they'll say the media is just meat riding Jayson Tatum, when in reality, no, it's you that's overrating Jaylen Brown. He's not even close to the shot creator Jayson Tatum is. We just saw an NBA Finals and a playoffs as a whole where he was struggling to dribble at times. And on the defensive side of the ball, you notice I talked about his one-on-one defense, because off the ball he still struggles very much. He ball watches a lot. I love JB, but let's not gas him to a level that he's not realistically on. Maybe one day he can get there, but he's not there right now. But I also say he's underrated because there's a lot of people, primarily analytics guys, who really underrate Jaylen Brown on a lot of their lists and rankings. And hell, even in the league, he wasn't an all-star this year or the one before. Hence, I think he goes under the radar for his contributions on this team. Hell, even Marcus Smart gets more credit than Jaylen Brown. Hell, I'll even go a step further. Al Horford was getting a lot more credit than JB at times. And don't get me wrong, those guys deserve to have their credit, but we should show Jaylen Brown his love. He definitely deserves it. But one guy that when we talk about redeeming yourself this upcoming season, it's easily the face of this franchise, Jayson Tatum. Jayson Tatum has gone through a rocky, and I mean a rocky year. He started off the season last year playing pretty bad, which hurt their season. And if you guys remember, I made a video about Jayson Tatum saying, man, y'all remember when Jayson Tatum was up next? I wasn't necessarily saying he was trash, obviously. I was just questioning if he was going to ever reach the heights that many people thought he would back in the day. But in the second half of the season, he started teeing up, as in the last 41 games, he averaged 28 points, nearly 8 rebounds and 5 assists, shooting 48% from the field, 37% from 3 on nearly 9 39 attempts and 87% at the free throw line. Tatum really made me change my outlook of him as a player, not because of him as a scorer or a defender, but him as a playmaker. Tatum throughout the entire postseason and obviously in the regular season had the ball in his hands a lot more often, and as a decision maker I definitely do believe that the improvement was very noticeable. As a passer, he's really good in the half court, can operate the pick and roll as a ball handler, he can find the lob threat, he's good at skip passes, he's effective in transition. The guy can do the whole shebang. He's not elite or anything, but he's still a very capable decision maker. And we all know what he does as a scorer. He's a big time shot maker, can make some of the toughest shots I've ever seen. He's a capable floor spacer. I think as a three-point shooter, he's actually pretty underrated. He's one of the best in the league, whether on the ball or off the ball. He can get to the free throw line and knock those down with consistency while also finishing very well at the rim, applying pressure there. And similar to Jaylen Brown, he's also one of the best defenders at his position, a very capable two-way player. So it's no surprise that Tatum is the face of the franchise and one of the young up-and-coming stars in this league. But ultimately, I'm going to have to put the blame of the failure of their season last year on Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, which leads me into my challenge for this team this upcoming season. When you look at how it ended for the Celtics last year, it came down to two problems: the performance of Jaylen Brown and the performance of Jayson Tatum. Jaylen Brown needs to learn how to dribble properly. And I'm not trying to be funny when I say this, the guy actually has a problem. He cannot play make for others if he cannot put the ball on the floor consistently. He's very careless. And as far as Jayson Tatum is concerned, let's be honest here. You couldn't even score in ISO situations on Jordan Poole and Steph Curry in the finals. That's disgusting. We talk about Jaylen Brown's dribbling. Jayson Tatum still dribbles with his head down. And like I said, I'm not trying to be funny here. These are just the facts. Of course, you can credit Andrew Wiggins for his defense, but Tatum was trash everywhere inside the three-point line in that finals. Now, I don't know how much of that was on the injury, but let's be honest here, Tatum has also shown the inability to score consistently in ISO situations essentially throughout his entire career. He is not an efficient ISO scorer despite what the highlights tell you. And the Warriors took advantage of that by eliminating the threats around Jayson Tatum and forcing him to be an ISO scorer, and he failed. Jaylen Brown is not off the hook either. He had a lot of suspect turnovers and mistakes in that finals and really throughout that entire playoff run, and if both of those guys step up the way that they are capable of, then they would be champions right now. So this season I need to see the redemption arc of Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. But hey, that's just my opinion, you guys. If you disagree, let me know down below in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is your boy Young Mustard signing out. Peace.